So this is the recap for live stream at 376, and we had a positive day, but it was a rather difficult day. I had it wasn't execution issues. I had some issues where I've made executions on the market, and luckily for me, one of my subscribers pointed out some important information that I will be looking to use going forward that's going to help in terms of my strategy. So we started the day. I suppose the most important thing is we did follow the strategy despite the early drawdown. So had a setup here, and it was to go short. Now, one of the viewers on the channel pointed out that there were some buyers there pretty much after I executed, and after having the discussions later on in the live stream, we did talk about what information was missing when I did make this execution. So went short, market rallied, thought about getting out, held the position all the way up to stop, and I was stopped out. So this was the largest loss on the day. Shorted the 516s, and eventually I was stopped out at the 575. So fairly large loss right there. Continued to follow the strategy, took a long, the target was hit, so we bought the 42.75s and we sold the 58s. Went long here and was in a bit of a drawdown at this point. The market set back up again, so went long again. Executed the first exit, which was from the most recent buy. Executed the second exit, which was from the earlier buy. And that was pretty much it for our trades on NQ. Did take some trades over on gold again. This did not work in my favor, so we had the market gap up a fair bit overnight. We saw the market rally over 2%. If we have a look here on the right hand side of the screen, we can see these markets are up a fair amount. We're having gold up 2.75%, NQ up 2.2%, and ES up 1.6%. So we had a fairly big rally. Talk about the US government reopening and the benefits being sent out. So the market saw that sentiment as somewhat good. So had this short, as the strategy indicated, went short, was stopped out. So shorted the 97.6s, exited the 102.3s. I then went short the 102.5s. And was stopped out here at the 106.6. So at this point, it was really not great. Went long, 103.9s. Prices came down, went long again. 104.9s, similar to what I did over on NQ. First target was the second target, the second entry was executed first, and the first entry was executed second. So executions up at the 106.6 and the 107.6. Now, in the lead up to this, the way the market was developing in the consolidation here, I thought we could see a big rally, but I wasn't willing to hold the trade any longer than I needed to, especially considering the fact that I was in a bit of a drawdown. So certainly exited, watched this rally, certainly felt a lot of FOMO. Price came down, got to set up long, took that long, price came down, thought I would be stopped out, eventually set up long again. I like this long here, but initially started to go against me, so I was certainly a bit concerned. So I went long again right there. Prices eventually did turn around, had to wait for it to pull back. So this was one of the most frustrating parts of the day. So the target was all the way up at the 122.6s, I believe. Yes, one of the targets was at 122.6. I believe it's this entry here, not this entry. So the second entry, the target was up at 122.6. Price got to 122.3, so 3 ticks away. We can see the high of this candle by looking at the top of the screen here. 122.3 started to pull back. It was certainly frustrating. Eventually, prices did hit the 122.6, and from the first execution, the target on the first execution, which took place at 116.6, the execution was to be exited up at the 122.9s, 122.8. So I've actually got some slippage here. I've managed to exit at the 122.9s, and that pretty much was it. that was a final execution, and that's where we pretty much ended the day in terms of the P&L. We can see here prices went as high as 123 falls before going into this consolidation, and we were out of there. So if we have a look at the account, we look at the balance history, we can see we went into a fairly big drawdown. So we started the day on the 10th of November, and we can see we started up at essentially 159 through a series of losses, 56, 49, and eventually that large loss over on NQ, large loss sitting on the short, which later I found out was a poorly executed trade considering the information that was available that I wasn't using at the time. So that short there that exited right there was responsible for minus 118 loss. Ultimately continue to stick with the strategy. Smaller gains, I wasn't a fan of these smaller gains, but the strategy suggested that these were the ideal targets to take. So 26, 38, 30, that was certainly frustrating considering that the losses were looking at 56, 49 and 118, but stuck with the strategy nonetheless. Continued to execute, picked up 39, 62, 66 and eventually 70. So nothing as large as the largest loss of 118, but certainly the accumulation of smaller wins certainly played its part in bringing the account back positive. So from that 1159, we're going to end 1263. So we are actually up on the day. So it's time to look at the trade performance. And on the trade performance here, we can see we've made 103,780, but that isn't the only thing we have to look at. We took 10 trades. It's a lot more ideally than I'd like. We took 7 winning trades. We only had 3 losing trades, but of concern certainly is the size of the average loss. So the average loss we're looking at 74,753, which is not great in comparison to the average win of only 47,728. So that's not great. It's closer to twice the size than being even. So that's not great. The large part of it is that that NQ trade where we lost 118. We can see we've only had 1 loss, but we lost 118. So that's not great at all. And again, that was shorting into that area where it could have been seen that the price it could possibly rally from that area as well. We only trade NQ and gold. So over on gold, we can see here we took these 6 trades. We can see we had a net profit of 96 there, 4 winners, 2 losers, 67%, and the average win to the average loss is a more balanced number, I'd say. While it's not great that the average loss is bigger than the average win, it's certainly more balanced than what we're seeing over here on NQ. That's not good at all. Overall, didn't spend a fair amount in commissions, not a huge amount. We can see, we're net positive, surprisingly. We are actually net positive on NQ and net positive on gold. Gold is responsible for most of today's P&L, and cumulatively we can see certainly that 103. But it was a tough day on NQ primarily because of that large loss, a 70% win rate. Certainly we can do with that, but if the win rate comes at the average win and average loss, it's not great. So with a 1-to-1 risk reward, certainly the kind of thing you would expect. Not expect, that's the kind of thing you would want. But I certainly will be looking to add a few more things to how I make decisions. I'm looking at Bookmap, as pointed out by one of the viewers on the channel, and I'll be back tomorrow. We'll be trading at 11 a.m. So normally I'll be trading at 11 a.m. unless my job dictates that I'm not here and available to trade. Now with that said, thanks for watching. Good luck trading. Have a great day.